TMA02 tutorial. As you know, TMA02 has two parts. One is research that you conduct, the other part is ideas that you generate and how you communicate them to me within your TMA. TMA02 has 6 sections. 1. You gather information, you make your initial research. 2. You make user research on your users. 3. You make a design brief. 4. Generate product ideas. As you know, ideas do not come in the brief. They are two separate things. You will not find ideas or solution in the brief. So ideas will come in section 4. Section 5, you shortlist out of the 8 ideas, 3 ideas, shortlist and evaluate them. Then you shortlist 1 idea and you develop concept design. Let's look in more detail. Section 1, you identify a product type. For example, a vegetable skin peelers is a product type. There are many types of peelers which you would look into, and then you identified problem and opportunities within those vegetable skin peelers. For example, you will gather information from a range of sources. One source is online, another source is going to the library or even going to shops and asking retailers for any advice. You can just pop in and ask people what do they sell, what do they think about the product that they sell. Section 2 is your user research. You will have to use primary and secondary resources. Primary is indeed when you're interviewing users, when you ask people, make questionnaires, when you go about and engage directly with the users. Secondary is when you would read online, when you read books, you read what other people wrote about your user. We want to see at least 2 methods, and this you will read in Book 2, Chapter 7. About your profile and persona of the user, use the template that are available in the book. Section 3, that's when you start to make your detailed design brief. The brief has to relate to the research outcomes. So you've conducted a good research, now we want to see the outcome of the research showing up in the design brief. What we do not want to see is a good research here, which you will then ignore and create a brief which does not relate to your research. The brief also has to have the 4 main elements of goal, context, constraint and criteria. I'll go through it in a second. Section 4. Generate product ideas. At this point you present at least 2 experienced designer creative methods, and I will go through it in a second, and at least 2 creative problem solving CPS technique. You will read all about it in Book 3, Chapter 4 and 6. I will go through it in a second. Remember, you need to generate minimum of 8 ideas, not 7, not 6, but 8 or more. 5. Here you shortlist and evaluate your ideas. You have 8 ideas or more. Here you need to evaluate and shortlist 3 ideas. The keyword here is evaluate. So you don't just shortlist, you don't just choose 3 ideas, but you also evaluate them. In other words, you explain to me why you chose those 3 ideas using the criteria of evaluation techniques. Section 6, the last section, that's when you start to develop concept design. So out of the chosen idea, 1 idea, you need to describe at least 2 CPS or experienced designer approach to develop your chosen concept. Summarize the benefit and the drawbacks. Let's go now to the 4 pleasure, which you can read all about in Book 2, Chapter 7. The 4 pleasure means 4 things, 4 pleasure that a user will derive from the product that you will design, and therefore the user will be willing to pay for it and buy it. Physio pleasure, any pleasure which derive from the senses. Social pleasure, any pleasure which a product provides the user by creating relationship, social relationship to the user, or providing a status. Psychological pleasure, psychopleasure, anything that relates to inner thoughts and emotion. And ideological pleasure, ideal pleasure, any ideals, thoughts or values, the keyword here is values, which a product represents and resonates with the values of the users. Let's look at 4 pleasure in this example. So this is just an image which I picked of floor standing speakers. And here I'm going to leave you asking you to think about physio pleasure, social pleasure, psychopleasure and ideological pleasure. I will not give you the answer what I'm thinking, just try yourself to come up with any 4 of these pleasure that you can think which relate to this product. You can do the same exercise for this product, that is a digital camera which looks like a film camera, so it's a retro design. That's why it makes it interesting. Let's go to the user profile and scenarios, which you'll read all about in book 2, chapter 8. User profile means characteristic of your user. And how do you know this? You simply make research on user. These are age, gender, IT skills, motivation, attitude. So that will make the user profile. Once you have your profile, you can create a scenario. Scenario is simply you sitting down and you write in, you construct the user lifestyle around your product based on the profile. Okay, user research. Research on users. We'll read about it in book 2, chapter 7. Now, user trip means testing the product yourself. Immersion means that you immerse yourself in the use of a product over a long period of time. So you try the product for a long time. Participant observation is a method where you try your product yourself, so you immerse yourself. Use a user trip. Here, when you opt for participant observation, you participate in the use of the product, but you also observe. You also observe others that are using the product. So participant observation could be named participant and observation. You become a participant and you also observe the product. You observe how others use the product. Creative methods, book 2, chapter 7. Body storming, using roleplay, acting out the use of a product, which is a great tool. Try to imagine yourself being the product. Cultural probe is when interviews are not the best approach. If interviews are not the best way to learn from people, you can use cultural probes. For example, giving people stickers to represent how they feel. So you give the people which you interview in a group sticker. One says yes, one says no. And if you ask a question, they can raise the sticker that says yes or the sticker that says no. Generating ideas. You will gather information. You can use associative thinking. And here I want you to look at these words here: adapting, transferring, making analogies, combining ideas. Please read book 3, chapter 4, where these terms are explained. They are not the same thing. They are different methods. Have a look at book 3, chapter 4. Creativity techniques and creative problem solving, CPS. These are big words, I know. You will read all about it in book 3, chapter 6. First thing, suspend judgment. Suspend judgment. Ideas may come, they may not work. It doesn't matter. Let them flow. You may find out that you have two ideas which do not work, but if you marry the two, a new idea which will work will emerge. You can use free association, and here's something interesting. Free association means that you link ideas based on experience and knowledge that you may already have. So you know something A, you know something which is B, you link A plus B. That's fine. However, free association may also come by, look at this, false relationship. False relationship. For example, you know that there's something which is called A, and you have invented a solution or a situation or a user, which let me call him C. It doesn't exist. C doesn't exist. But when you marry, when you join A and C, something miraculous can happen. So sometimes free association may not be led by what you know, but by what you envision or wish to achieve, and that may bring results. Brainwriting means almost exactly like brainstorming. The only difference is that you start working by yourself. Some designers have to sit down by themselves, write the idea by themselves, and only then share it with the group. With brainstorming, on the other hand, you start working with the group. You just let any ideas to come up and share them with the group. With brainwriting, you start working by yourself and then you share it with the group. Random stimulus is a brilliant method. You just pick up anything, a random word, sound, color, a picture, open a dictionary, and connect it to the problem that you need to solve. It may sound very theoretical, but actually it's a very creative and useful method. If you think you're stuck with not enough idea, always remember you may be standing here, looking at the problem from that angle, and all you see is this square. If you're stuck, remember that if you will just change perspective, you may see different thing, and there's always a way to change perspective. For example, this is our perspective. This is what adults see. And when kids look at this card box, that is what they see. Design brief should have goal, context, constraint, criteria. Goal, is what you want to achieve. Context is the background, the setting in which the product will operate. Now, constraints are specific guidance. You can say that they are qualitative. For example, a product should not weigh more than 1 kilo. They are tangible. Criteria are qualitative. They are less specific. They are more open. For example, a product should be intuitive for a specific lifestyle user. So let's look quickly at an example here. For example, it's no more than £7 and should be in retail shops in 10 months from now. Criteria: simple to maintain, simple to clean, and simple and quick to use. Now, as you see, this is quite open, which is meant to be open because you don't want to limit the designer. You could say that any product that you design should be simple to maintain and simple to clean. That's correct. If you become very specific in your criteria, then you should put them in the constraints. Criteria, you should leave them open with open direction to the designer. You don't want to limit your designer, you want to let them flow. You have limited them already here in the constraints. Now remember concept sketches. We want to see 8 different ideas at least. You need to evaluate them. How to do so? Simply check each ideas against the criteria and constraint of the brief. And the best way to do so is to use selection matrix. For example, there is here in this little idea here, there's a push button to release a knife here. So there's a sketch of a push button here to release the knife from the block here. And with the selection matrix, I write push button on knife block. Is it straightforward for adults? So here you say yes, no. Does it prevent child access? Yes or no. Next, we call it block 4 and block 5. In block 4 we will look at configuration, how things connect and how they are arranged. For example, a house with 6 rooms has many possible arrangements. So we will look at that, at configuration. Block 5 we will look at manufacture, how to make things. And if we produce 10 items, would we produce them in the same way if we had to produce 1 million items? We will look at that. In any case, in block 4 and 5 and for the block, we will consider the user need, we will research and look at our own assumption, we will have to be creative, and we will have to check solution against the brief, which means we will use whatever we learned so far up to block 3, we will use in block 4 and 5 as well.